What is going on, guys? And today we are back. We haven't done a session review in a little bit, but Julian was so nice to send in a review. It is a triple review. We are using some new software today. I don't think we've used in a video yet, actually. This software is on MixedGamesLab. You can always go over to mixedgameslab.com. And if you use code LMG, you will get a discount. I am putting a selfish plug in there, but for sure, you can definitely do that. It supports basically all the mixed games. We'll get into it at a later date. At the moment, though, the one thing I did want to do is I wanted to use the hand replayer. The hand replayer works for all stars hand histories, and it works for all of Phenom's histories. I will make a caveat. It does not work for the stud games as of right now, just because that is a Phenom thing. That is not a Mixed Labs games thing. Sorry, Mixed Lab. I'm butchering it, but it's basically on Phenom's site right now. If you look at the text files, they don't provide the cards. It's kind of a weird thing. They are getting that fixed in the near future, but as of right now, it doesn't support the draw games. I'm sorry, it doesn't support the stud games. So we're going to use the replayer because Julian sent in a text file, but this is also super useful to kind of look at and jump in theoretically to some of the equity spots, depending on what game we're playing in the future. But we're going to discuss this today with Julian. So Julian, jump on in there, say hi, give us your 30 seconds, your background in poker, and then we'll just start reviewing.
Sure, thank you. Hello, everybody. So I'm Julian. I'm Petriachor on Phenom, and also that's my YouTube channel's name. So I've been playing poker online since the end of 2015 on a French site called Winamax, and that's mostly where I've been playing my online poker. And I was very interested in a documentary by Victor Saumon, a French, I guess, journalist, poker reporter. And Nosebleed follows Alex Luno and Seb Sabic, who were two high-stakes pros playing mixed games online and also playing the WSOP, trying to get a bracelet. And that was a great documentary. You can find on YouTube. There's a French version and English version with English subs. So just type Nosebleed, and you'll find it, I guess, on YouTube. And that's how I got hooked by other games than just Norm Hold'em. And unfortunately, it wasn't available on Winamax at the time when I first started playing, but in late 2016, they were available. So I jumped right in, had a blast in Rise and Deuce to 7 and other games. It's not all the games that are available on there compared to Phenom, so there's different limitation. But for a few years, I've been able to play there. And then when Phenom launched tournaments, I decided to jump on there to have fun and play tournaments there.
Yeah, cool. I know exactly the documentary you're talking about. I forget the name of it, but I remember watching it. It was really cool to watch. So actually, I'll find the link for it and I'll put it down in the description below if you guys want to watch it as well. It's definitely pretty sweet, especially when they were, I think, shelling out cash to pay for some of the high-end dinners that they were going to during that documentary, and I've been a foodie myself in the past, so it's fun to watch that. All right, so let's give the setup here. This was a $25 tournament on Phenom. This was a triple. There were a bunch of other hands in here. You can see the hands over here on the side. It does say 66, but there was a lot more, but I cut the video down to make sure that we can just look at the hands where I thought there would be some worth discussion. This is going to be a two-part video, and in the second part of the video, we're going to jump into some of the ICM situations later, and that will become relevant as we move forward. All right, so this is the first one here. So you guys can always see it over what game we're playing. I'm sorry, this is not a triple. This was a super triple.
Yes, super triple draw.
That's right. I totally forgot about that. It is Badugi, Ace to 5 triple draw, Deuce to 7 triple draw, Badeucey, and Badacey. So my bad, I forgot about that. So we will jump in to whatever hand that we're playing as need be. All right, the first one here is a Badugi hand. We have a limp under the gun, and it's just going to fold to us. And this is kind of just like, I would say, somewhat of an irrelevant hand. You can just fold here and it'd be fine. But I also think, too, when players start to like limp in at these stack depths, they're just trying to see or they're just drawing two. Sometimes you can just like raise this hand because it does reduce nice with a 3-card 9 here. And you can reduce to a 3-card 5. You can just make a 9 Badugi, or you just turn your hand into a snow pretty quick. So I would think about playing this hand against weak players if they're going to be limping in an early position, because there's really no hand that just should be open limping here. There's always going to be, in some games, you're going to find some players that are just open limping monsters to try to get players into the hand. But the thing is like the way they play their hand for the most part, if they do it, I do think they miss value by playing it that way because they tend to turn their hand face up. In these smaller tournaments, a lot of players can't hand read correct. Sorry, I lost my mic. Sorry about that.
Okay.
In some of these tournaments for the most part, players can't hand read. So, you know, they might actually, it's probably more beneficial to actually limp monsters here, but you're just not going to see it as much. Like, it's just usually harder to make a monster. So here I probably would have open raised this one and then like maybe drew one, depending if I reduced, keep drawing. If not, then maybe just turn my hand into a snow. If I got a lot of action, then it might be a little bit different of how I would have played it. But I think like just thinking about playing some of these hands against like weak opponents, I think is just
Yeah.
a really good spot to consider like picking up some equity. So.
Yeah, I can definitely relate with the temptation when there's a limper to widen my range a little bit, especially in games where I feel comfortable. Badugi's not a game where I feel most comfortable in, but like in Deuce and Triple Draw, I would probably take that spot.
Yeah, too. And the other thing too is like I would never like open raise all three card nines here. Like I wouldn't take a hand like 9, 8, 7 and 3 and raise it. But this one does reduce, right? Like we can make a 3 card 5 in this situation and just have showdown value. And remember in Badugi too, like obviously um the hand that is the favorite going in is usually pushing. It's very similar like Limit Hold'em. The hand that is like the best hand at that time, you know, pre-flop or pre-draw, or like has a pair on the flop, etc., is almost always going to be pushing an equity edge and usually should be betting. So like in this situation, if we do reduce to a 3 card 5 against maybe a draw 2 or like a rough draw 1, we're pushing plenty of equity against their range. All right, hand 2 here's a triple draw hand. I don't remember this one off the top of my head. We raise with the 2, 6, 7, 8. I think this is totally standard. Big blind calls.
It's ace to 5, it seems, right?
Oh, it is ace to 5. Okay, sorry. I am so off of it. Thank you for correcting me, Julian. All right. The first thing I would say about this is I think it's a little too weak. 2, 6, 7 in my mind, no matter how you want to play this hand, if you want to draw one at the 8, which I wouldn't do. So
No.
my theory here is I would draw 2 at the 2, 6, 7, but I think this is just a little bit too weak with respect to your exact hand. Again, just for showing everyone, we can go over to stud flop draw and we can actually go over to the starting hands and we can go to the draw ranges. Now, this is something that is still for free if you ever go over to studflopdraw.com and register, use code LMG. But where's it at? Ace to 5 triple draw. There we go. If we go to ace 5 triple draw ranges, and we say like from the cutoff for the most part, like it's around 35%. Four-handed, maybe a little bit different, but I would say like this is a pretty good range from like the cutoff here. And again, it's just a little bit outside. So if we start to see where like the 2, 6, 7, 8 kind of falls in, you're getting like kind of close to the top 60%, which is just I think a little bit outside of that range. So
Yeah.
I would just go ahead and fold this hand. But now we're kind of in it to win it. So since we're here, you do take 2. I think this is fine. It's going to go 3-2. He's going to check. You're going to bet. This is fine. We're going to break the 10, it looks like. 2-1. This is good. You make 7-6. Check, bet, call. Good. Check. And I think on this river here with 7-6-4, I do think you should bet, especially on the previous draw. If we can kind of look over here and see like some of the hand history.
Yeah.
He draws 1, and then I think the previous draw before that, he draws 2, and I think you draw 1. You cut the 10 to the 4. You drew 1. So usually in that situations, like players can think that you're bluffing a little bit, and I think overpay you off. So I do think most 7s here on the river are probably some bets. If we throw some of these hands into the solver, my guess is on a 1 pat going into the river, it's probably going to check some 7s. Don't quote me off the top of my head, but I think that's just from the times that I've used it in the past. But I do think 7-6 is probably worth a bet. Anything about Elsa's hand? I don't really think so, but he does pair 6s and checks back. Now, what's interesting about this hand too is when your opponent here shows a pair of 6s and decides not to bet the river in the spot, especially with a good draw, they're probably under bluffing. I do think players generally, especially in ace to 5, deuce to 7 has been a very well covered game. You know, especially from like players like Chris Fitch and other players in the past, where you know players have started to find better hands to bluff with. They know to like bluff their top pair hand at some frequency. So if they're not bluffing the hand that has 0 showdown value here, then they're really missing out on it's just something where like they're just too polar in my mind. Because if he's not bluffing this hand in this situation, then they're just totally under bluffing. And most players are, I would say, more often than not in ace to 5.
I agree.
All right, ace 5 next hand. You are dealt a really, really big hand in this spot with this is the 7th best hand in this game, 7-4-3-2. And this is just one you're just going to be jamming pre-draw. Buddy Aardvark. I haven't played with Aardvark in a while. But let's see, it goes raise, call, you 3-bet, call, it looks like. 3, you're going to pat this one. You do not break this one. If you had 8, you'd break an 8, but not a 7.
Yeah.
What did he do? He took 2? Okay. So he checks, you bet, he calls, call. This is great so far. You're doing great. 2, pat 1, check, bet, raise, and fold. Okay. So when we get to us here, we're still like relatively pretty high up in our range. I think so. The other thing I want to send out the caveat here is this is the beginning of the tournament. Everyone's relatively deep. We have plenty of chips. Like there's no ICM considerations really here to consider. And this is going to be for the most video. This is all we're going to be talking about mostly is chip value, right? We're going to be talking about like where can we gain the most money in the chips. I think 7-4 is plenty enough of a hand to go ahead and 3-bet in this situation. Now, one thing you kind of have to, I think, ask is what is his interpretation of your range? Because if you look at like if he's raising like say all sevens here, and you look at the distribution of like wheels and sixes, there are 6 hands. If you look at the distribution of sevens, there's 15 hands. So if he's raising all sevens here, plus I would say bluffs in this spot, you know, if he's ever trying to get you to break a hand or fold a hand, um, then it's very well rated. It's very well weighted to the side that you probably should be 3-betting this hand, especially like how high up you are in your range. I don't think you just want to 3-bet sixes and bluffs, because if you're 3-betting sixes and bluffs in this situation, then you're, I mean, again, you're just kind of polarized for the most part to like sixes and, you know, a bluff. But I do think like some of the sevens in this situation do justify a 3-bet. Yeah, I feel like sometimes in ace to five it's a little bit scary because like technically Chris Vitch did a great video on this where you technically kind of run into the top of their range a little bit more in this game. Um, but with that being said, I still think 7-4 is probably worth a 3-bet in this spot. Just kind of looking at it, you do call and you do pat correctly. There's no question you are supposed to pat this hand, and he does take one, and you check the river, and I think this is right as played, and he checks back, and he was obviously trying to get you to break there with a wheel draw.
Yeah, that's a play I wasn't very familiar with going into that tournament, but recently I've been made aware of that play where you have some sort of convertible hand,
Correct, yeah.
like in the turn it could be a 10-7,
Mhm.
and here I guess it would be maybe a 9-9-6, 9-5,
Yeah, right.
and if you're in position, you're trying to make your opponent to break, and if they break, then all good, you pat your 9 or your 10 into 7, and you have an equity edge, and if they don't break, then you redraw to whatever you're
Correct.
drawing to.
Yeah. Now, one thing I would definitely say there also is you have to, you kind of, you can't just do it at a frequency in which you say like, all right, every time I catch a 9, I'm going to do that on the last drop. Because if you look at it from that perspective, you're over raising in that situation, and you can just probably go ahead and pat 100% of the time. And because if they're just going to break, they're like think of the draws, right? Like in that situation, say he's got ace 2 3 4, right? If he catches a 5, he's raising. If and there's just for card removal sakes, if he catches a 5, he's raising. If he catches a 6, he's raising. He catches a 7, he's raising. And if he catches a 9, he's raising, right? Like maybe an 8 in that position, he might just freeze you. Um,
Yeah.
if that's the case, then basically what he's saying is for every 3 value raises, he's got 1 bluff. But if you look at like the if you look at the distribution there, I think it's just too heavily weighted. I think you want to be a little bit more balanced, just given the pot size. So if we actually look at the pot size here when he does this, big,
Yeah, the pot is quite huge.
yeah. So at this point, like, yeah, I mean, there's 18 big blinds in here total at this point, and you have to call 2, so basically like 9-1. So he's a little bit like weighted. He's this is a situation where I think if you're gonna do that, you want to roll. You want to be a little bit more balanced. You sometimes here you want to like just call the 9 and break it, and then other times what you want to do in this situation is you just want to you do want to raise and try to get your opponent to do it. But if he does it every single time in this spot, he's overdoing it. So
Yeah.
it's one of these things where you kind of have to figure out the math, like, and ask yourself, am I
Yes.
overdoing it versus not? Some players will just fold here some of their range, and you can do it all day long. But
Yeah.
if the player is doing it too much, you can just pat like your whole range here, and then if they break, just try to get the showdown. So I think that's just kind of like a decent exploit and something that players should be looking for when they are seeing these raises in position by players who like probably tend to like attempt to overbluff.
Yeah, I will say one last thing is since that pot is so huge, I think it makes a lot of sense to deploy that play, because if you're able to make the opponent break, it's quite a huge benefit since the pot is huge. And
Yeah.
if the pot was smaller, at in proportion the raise that you put in with your convertible hand might hurt you more if the pot is smaller.
Well, the one thing I will say is again, when the pot gets bigger, and solvers have like shown this, tend to show this, is like we don't fold as much. So
That's
if
true.
the pot's bigger in that situation, we're actually probably more incentivized there to call and pat our hand and just see what happens. Whereas if the pot's smaller in that spot, we're, I would say more incentivized to like fold like the weakest parts of our range. But once the pot gets bigger, my guess is like we're probably supposed to fold like some top fraction of we're supposed to fold like a small fraction of the bottom of our range kind of thing. But
Hmm.
for the most part, when you start jamming in that many bets, we're just not supposed to fold that much. We're supposed to get shut
Yeah.
out more often than not. So the idea of it working, while it makes some sense, in practicality, and players are just supposed to call down more often than not, I think there.
Right there.
All right. 3-4-7 button raises. You 3-bet. This is fine actually. I think a lot of players think that this is probably a little bit over the top. I think 3-4-7 naked on its own is probably close, but I think given the fact that you have a blocker and a 9, this is just one of those things. Again, you can throw into stud flop draw
Yeah.
pro actually and see like where this ranks. But I do
Yeah.
think since a lot of players here are opening drawing 3, I think this is fine with the 3-4-7. He calls, you take 2, you take 2. Yeah, we break the first draw. It's going to go check. He bets. We call. This is fine so far. You catch an ace and a 10. We're going to break the 10 here out of position. I would just check call. You do. And then on a river, you pair 4s. And this is the spot I usually give up. I mean, if you want to like throw some, randomization in like maybe a low frequency bluff, but this is a spot where I would just pretty much, I think, just check and give up. You do bet. And I think, again, I think this is like somewhat technically like an overbluff because in theory, I would say like your 4s have a little bit of showdown value if you're
I agree.
over bluffs, but I don't think he's folding like theoretically a worse hand. You're kind of like targeting the low pairs here,
Yes,
and
that's exactly
yeah,
that.
that's the thing. It's like you've seen a 4, you've seen a 3, you haven't seen, but you're trying basically to get to fold like an ace or deuce. So like theoretically
Yeah.
here, again, like when you get to this river here with like 4s and you check and your opponent bets, like all these type of hands, except for 7s are different because obviously if you make 7s, you really don't have that much equity here unless your opponent's like drawing at an 8 and pairs 8s. But
Mhm.
if all your hands here for the most part are basically going to have like they're just bluff catchers. They're all worth the same, right? Whatever his frequency of bluffing, if he over bluffs, then you can probably call um most everything. But in reality, like these 4s here, I would say are just doing a little bit different. I would prefer if you get to this river with this hand and you check and he bets, like I don't think I would. I would think like maybe I would turn my hand into a check raise at some small frequency, but I wouldn't lead the 4s here. I think I would just like check give up more often than not.
Yeah.
And then he shows up with an 8. But yeah. I mean, you never know. Sometimes it does work. Some people do overfold. So all right, next one here is ace 3 10 8. So it goes raise under the gun. This player cold calls, and if we're here, it looks like we call. I would still fold this one. If I
Mm.
had like 2 pair, like ace 3 3, I would probably call here. But against an under the gun range and a cold caller from the cutoff, I think I would still fold. Now, if the players are really, really bad, making really bad decisions, you are on the button in position, and you can probably get away with it long term, just from a later street perspective. But I think just generally, like as a rule of thumb, I would just go ahead and fold this one.
Yeah, I'm not surprised I did that. It's been a while since I've seen that
Okay, cool.
replay. Yeah.
Yeah. It goes 1, 2, 3. It goes bet, call. You call 2. I like the call. I am not a huge fan of raising in position here with strong draws. Like I think a lot of players still do it, but I would much rather kind of hide my range. He's Pat anyway, so it does work out. 2, 1. You pair the ace. Now this is kind of a fun one, I would say, to consider actually raising because like if you've
Mhm.
seen 2 aces, I would say if you've seen a third ace, it probably makes more sense to try to like get him to just break, depending on if this player calls or not. If he folds now, if I'd seen a third ace, I might do it because like again, his range is probably a little bit weak. But when we pair the second ace, I think we just want to call. Again, we're probably bluffing too much if that's the case. We draw 1, we make number 3, good hand. He bets easy raise in this spot, especially seeing an extra ace that we have, but we're always raising number 3. He calls.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
surprised I just called here. Maybe I wasn't really
no, no,
focused
no.
on.
I think you
Maybe I
raised.
had
I think you
something
did
else.
raise. Oh, you did. Did you call?
I just called. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Yeah, I thought you raised.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just call here. So yeah, this is definitely we miss value here for sure.
Yeah.
And he shows up with a
Agree.
7 high straight, which I don't think should be betting here. I think should be checking when you play it like this, especially when you draw 3, because usually when you draw 3 and
Mhm.
reduce to a 1 card draw, you're almost always going to have really strong draws.
Yeah.
So I think he probably wants to check this specific hand. All right, next one here is ace 5 6. So raise here under the gun. Next person cold calls. Um, this is close just because of the fact of like if you kind of think of the deuce to 7 ranges, like you're probably having a very similar hand here to like mm, maybe like 2 4 8 or something like that. I think it's
Mhm.
playable. I think you can probably still call in here with a 3 card 6 again because like we're not worried about making straights or anything like that. We can still make a 6. But I think what I would do here is just if I'm going to play this hand, just probably call, kind of given this. You 3-bet. I think this is a little bit
Yeah.
too much just based off the fact, again, it's under the gun, a cold call from the hijack. So their ranges should be beating us pretty handily here. And then the big blind calls. Didn't remember that one. So it goes call, call, call. So we see this one. This is a big pot right now.
Yeah.
Um,
Once again,
yeah, and
I'm just surprised that I raised here.
okay. Yeah, and it's definitely something to take notice because the big blind here just called and drew 1. So this range should be like capped. It should not be like a super strong range in this spot.
Mhm.
You reduce to a 1 card draw. It checks to you, and I would bet a 1 card draw in this position after it checks, and it goes 1-2-2, just based off the fact that this range is probably a little bit weak. And then since these players didn't bet, it's unlikely they have a 1 card draw.
Yeah.
So you bet. I think this is good. 1-1-1-1. We make number 4. And obviously we just bet down with this hand at this point. This is just a massive pot. Draw 1-1-1-1. Check, 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 bet, fold, fold, call. All right. And he just kind of like wants to bluff catch in a massive pot on this river. Yeah, I get it. It's so hard for me to see if players can find the bluffs here. You know what I mean? Ace to 5 is just like one spot where I just don't know if like players are bluffing in this situation. And it's so tempting to call here to try to pick the bluff off because I understand it, but man, I just don't know like how often players are bluffing, especially at these stakes in the $25 tournament is played. So, all right, next one here is 836. Raise under the gun. This is
deuce 2-7 this time.
sorry, deuce 7. Yeah. Okay, I would throw this hand away. This is just way too weak.
Yeah.
Okay, this is good. I think the reason I put this one in here is just because I wanted some players to see like, you know, this type of range here is just not good. I would have folded this hand if folded to us, especially with this. Now, had I had like 8-8-6-6-3 or 8-8-6-3-3 or something like that, or trips or something, I probably would have 3-bet this hand. But not with this. This is like the worst combo we can have here with the ace and you fold. So I just wanted to put that in there for players to see like we're not opening that one. This is the same thing under the gun here. Even though we have 3 to a wheel without the deuce in our hand in this position, when you're playing 6-handed deuce to 7, you just have to play tighter. You just have to play snug, and you will see in some of the mixed games, and like if you make a final table at Phenom and a lot of the mixes, they start 7-handed. You just have to play super snug in those games. So we fold here again. Just another good one, just one that I wanted to just kind of throw in there just to prove my point. All right. Here we have the deuce 4 in Badeucey. Now we were playing Badeucey here on the button. So 7-5-4-3-2 is the best low, and 5-4-3-2 is the best Badugi, a split pot game. You're going to raise here with deuce 4. This is good. Call fold. You take, and you've seen an extra deuce. Deuce, yeah. So you make, it goes 2-3. You make 2-4-5-8, and you have a 2 suit. All right. Basically, it's going to depend on like what he does. Okay, so when he bets here, it's tricky. So did I just hit play? I did hit them. Okay, so we're good. So I would call here, and I think what my plan to do is to take 1 at the 2-4-5-8, and if I break the next street or don't improve to a better 3 card, I'm probably folding depending on what he's doing. This is one of these hands that gets you in like one of these reverse implied odd spots that's just not great. You could theoretically draw 3 again at the 2-4, but I think your equity is actually higher if you draw at the 2-4-5-8. Also, it kind of gives you some bluff equity is not the right word, but ability to maybe get your opponent to fold like a weaker hand. You can also reduce. I mean, like you can still make a Badugi in this hand theoretically. You could like make a pair Doogie with a diamond 4 and a 5, or club or something like that, and then make it on the end. It is possible, but obviously it's really hard to do. But also you can reduce here and make like a 3 card. You can make a 3 card 5, 3 card 4, something like that, 3 card 6 even, and still have some showdown value. So I would call here and draw 1 at the 2-4-5-8, even though I don't love it. And I think depending on what happens here is if he draws 1 and I call and I break the next street, I might be folding, just because again, your reverse implied odds of carrying a 2 card into the river is just not that great. So you do reduce here and you make a 3 card 3 and 3 card 4 and a number 5 low, 8-5 low. And this is a hand that you do want to raise here if he does bet, especially going 2 to pat. He bets, you raise, this is good. Call, and then on the river here, check, it goes pat, pat, check, bet, call. And he does have an 8 Badugi. So he did have a relatively good hand here. Take note that he didn't 3-bet you out of the small blind here with any sort of these combos here. And it's probably, if he's going to play it, he should be 3-betting you. So just a note.
Right.
All right, Badeucey next hand. Looks like we only have a 2 card here. It looks like we have a 3 card, but only have a 2 card with 3 card 4. Again, I think this is a little bit too loose. I would have folded this one. If you had like 2-3-3 or 2-2-3, it's probably a little bit tempting, but I think 3-4 on its own is probably, again, just a little bit too weak. Would you get, and that's what, like the other thing too is like if we play this hand out of position, it's just a little bit rough now. And that's one of the reasons, like we can open 2 cards on the button, but opening 2 cards from the cutoff makes it like a 3 card draw. We can get put in some of these like awkward spots. So it's going to go 3-1. We make no improvement. Check. I would draw 3 again. He bets. We call. Draw 3, and he's pat. And we just. What do we make here? We make a Jack Badugi or a 3 card 5. We've seen 2. Was it 2 3s, 2 4s, and 2 5s now?
Yeah.
This is a tricky spot. Because a lot of times here, you're unblocking your opponent from having like the rougher Badugis, like the 9 Badugis, the 8 Badugis. Um, and you're blocking your opponent from having the good 3 cards. So my guess is more often than not here, what's going to happen is your opponent probably has actually like an 8 or 9 Badugi.
Okay.
When he draws 1 and goes pat, he could have something, very similar to like the 7 draw or the good 8 draw with a 1 card. But again, I think you had, I want to go back here, but I think you have 3s, 4s, and no, you
Yeah.
have 3 3s, 3 3s, 3 3s, a 4, and
And 2
8s,
5s. Yeah.
and 2 5s. So I think a lot more often than not, you're going to kind of run into like a 9 Badugi in this situation. So it's tempting because theoretically here, like having this Jack Badugi and then having a 3 card 5 is kind of the same hand, right? Like you could theoretically run into
Mhm.
a better 3 card, but it's hard given the fact that you've seen 3 3s, 2 4s, and now 2 5s. So basically here, like you kind of have like the nut 3 card. So the only question here is like, should you continue with the nut 3 card? Um, I'd probably say actually, given the fact of what the blockers we've had, the answer is probably yes, and we probably want to get this one to showdown. I kind of feel sick saying it, but
Mhm.
because like you never really want to draw 2 again into a pad hand like this, hoping because he knows for a fact now, like he knows for a fact you don't have a Badugi, right? So in that situation,
Mhm.
when he knows you don't have a Badugi, he kind of gets to play perfectly against you, and it's one of these spots where I guarantee if like stud flop draw had an equity solver, I'm sorry, if stud flop draw had an equity that if stud flop draw had a solver for Badeucey, it's one of these spots where I think it's very hard for us to under realize our equity. Because one, we're out of position, two, we're drawing 2 now into the face of a pat hand. So this player in position gets to over realize his equity in this situation. Given the blockers that we've seen though, the thing is like more often than not, when you have like the nut 3 card, you probably want to draw again. And given the blockers that we've seen here, it kind of effectively makes your hand the nut 3 card, right? So man, I think this one just has to be close from a this one just has to be close from the perspective of like I think it's just close. I don't know which way that I would theoretically go with this, but I think it's kind of like probably neutral. You check, you're gonna face a
Mhm.
bet. You do
Yeah.
call, you take 2. I don't fault you for this, and then you get to the river here, and you actually reduce a little bit better 3 cards. So yeah, like we're checking, we're calling. And he does have like a 4 card 7 here without it. So you technically were free rolling in this spot. And I think that's one thing to like take away from is if you like, that's the one thing that's hard is because you're calling up 2 big bets, right? And you're out of
Yeah.
position. You're giving that information away. However, if you do have the best 3 card in this situation, you're free rolling. That's the difference, right? Like
Yeah.
it's one of these spots where it's yeah, like you probably are going to technically underrealize your equity, but at the same time, like you're free rolling. So that's a little bit different as
Mhm.
opposed to like deuce to 7, where you're like, oh, I think he's bluffing me. I'm going to draw 2 again. That doesn't really work because like if he's bluffing at a
Mhm.
normal frequency, he can just bet his hand all day long and crush you. But in Badeucey, you're free rolling for the other half of the pot in this situation. If you fold the best 3 card, you're giving half. So
Mhm.
my guess is like if he does show up with this type of hand here in this spot, like you made the right decision here to call with the 3 card 5 and get it to showdown. So all right, 2 3 4
Yeah, I'm
7
glad
8.
I didn't keep the jack here because I thought I might have done that for a second.
Yeah, no, it's like it's one of those spots where basically like I said, like the 3 card 5 and the Jack Badoo, you're basically the same hand. Because
Yeah.
just based off the fact of the blockers, like if you have 3 4 5 and no blockers there,
Mhm.
it's tougher because again, he can just have like 4 3 2, 5 4
Mhm.
2, 5 3 2. He can have all those combinations there, but because of all the blockers that you've seen, it's just so much less likely that he has that.
Yeah.
And that's why blockers in this game are just so important. So
Mhm.
yeah, like I think that probably would have swayed me to go ahead and call in that spot and just kind of puke about it, especially like going against a pad hand. But a lot of times there you're just gonna be free rolling. So it did work out
Mhm.
there. All right, here you have we're Badeucey again on the button, and we have the 2 3 4 7 8. So we have the 10th best deuce to 7 hand, and then we have the nut 3 card. This is again just a hand that we're gonna jam and pat, and we're just gonna bet down, call pat pat. Yeah, when he does this, like he should have some he's never gonna have you scooped here. Like he should. There's no hand, even if he has 8 6. Like there's no hand with an 8 6 and like the nut 3 card here that he's gonna have that has you beat. So you're totally free rolling to scoop his hand in this situation. Like he could just have a worse 87 with a worse 3 card. So like this is a spot where you
Yeah.
just pat your hand and just bet down.
Yeah.
And he's got
Right.
99, so you just chop it. So you play this one.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was quite likely he had a Badugi that was a little weak, but
Yeah.
I still thought even if I know for sure that he has a Badugi that's a little weak and a worst 8 deuce to 7 hand, I think there's value, not value to be had in chips, but there's an interest in betting down because then if I face a similar situation where I'm pat and I have him scooped, then he will call me down as well, just like he did in this hand. Do you know what I mean?
I missed it. Say that one again.
So I think it's good to bet down this hand, even if I know for sure that he has a Badugi that's very
Sure.
weak and a
Mhm.
worse deuce to seven hand. Because if I bet down
Oh yeah.
a different hand where I know for sure I have him scooped, I know for sure it will calm me down again.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You mean like if you know he's scooped?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Because well, the other thing too is like you can technically scoop his range here. So
yeah.
the way he's played his hand, there's no hand here that you can scoop him. If he has 8-8, he would have check raised you. I actually think he should have. If you look at his hand here with not basically like it's almost perfect 9-9. Like obviously there's some nuances here, but he almost has like a perfect 9-9. I would have check raised this hand. In Badeucey, like this hand is very strong against the pat range on the button. Like here you should have like pat tens, all pat 9-9s, and he's crushing those. And then like against the hands where you don't have a Badugi, he's free rolling those anyways, right? So I think he actually misses a check raise here with this specific hand. Now, given what you said here, you have the ability to scoop his hand. You have the ability to scoop part of his range. In this situation, he has no ability to scoop your hand. Like he could easily just get to the river here with like a worse 87 and a worse 3 card, and you scoop him. So these are the spots for sure. You're it's like in one of these spots where like if you have more ability to scoop his hand than he has ability to scoop yours, you should be betting more. If he's going to scoop you more than you're going to scoop him, you should be checking and getting a showdown or playing your hand passively. So in this spot here, like yeah, you played it great. You had the opportunity to scoop. Like I think he underplayed his hand, and you would have like been sad about your hand. I think if he check raised you at some point, but you just would have called down. I think there's nothing else really to do.
Yeah.
Because Badeucey's like there's weird combos in Badeucey where like he could have a 9-6 and he just can't draw. Like he could have 6 Badugi and a 9 low where he really can't draw at that hand. Um, because like if he breaks that hand, like what's he gonna draw it, right? Like draw it an 8. He's not really gonna do that there because like you have like all 9-9s here on the button and you even have like some 10-10s here. You should. So just something to think about. Ace of 5 triple draw now. So we are back in the low ball streets. Ace to 5. Raise, call, ace 3-4, 3 to wheel. This is good. No improvement. I like the check here. He checks back. 2-2. You can do some funky things here, like you know, when it goes like this 2-2 spot, you should be checking at some frequency even when you improve.
Hmm.
You should be leading sometimes. You should be going for some check raises. Because if the opponent here is gonna like bet in position, when they improve to any one card draw, then you should be punishing them like the times they're like overdoing it. But you can do a lot of funky things here. You can just you can even like roll to decide what you're gonna do. You go for a lead, which is totally fine. He
Oh yeah,
calls. You pair the 3, and again, this is a spot I would just check. You
yeah,
bet again, and I think again
yeah,
it's kind of the same thing we talked about earlier. I think like this is
yeah,
the part of the range you want to do it, and technically by doing this, you're technically over bluffing. So
yeah. I might
um,
actually be bluffing with his best hand here
you could be bluffing with best hand. You're absolutely, yeah. And
and
he
be
calls
called
you
by
now,
worse. Yeah,
and this is crazy because he called you in position here. And a pot, he did raise, you called, and it went check check. So the pot's relatively small, and then he improves to what's most likely a 1 card jack draw. This is lighting it. This is the lighting on fire here. This is what he should be doing is drawing 2, I think, again at the a6-7. So drawing at the
yeah,
jack there is a relatively pretty big mistake. But he picked your bluff off there, so that's unfortunate. All right, ace of 5 triple draw here with a 4-5-6. Whoops, I skipped one. There we go. So he
yeah,
folds. Yeah, I would open here with a 4-5-6. I'm breaking 8 for sure. Goes call call. 2-3-2. You improve to one
yeah,
card. You've seen an 8 and a 5. Check check bet. This is good. Call call. Pat. Okay, this is weird because like
yeah,
when your opponent doesn't 3-bet you when you open the cutoff again. Now we're playing a $25 tournament, so we have to like kind of take things into account here that this player might not understand the concepts of like ace to 5. Like more often than not, he might just call with like some of his decent hands, and then when he goes 2 to pat, most likely what it is, especially even at these tournaments, is just kind of a weak hand that just kind of wants to get to showdown instead of going for the bet itself.
yeah,
So just something to keep in mind. So we draw 1, we make the 7, he bets, he calls. Now, what I would do with your hand here against this range is I would probably call and freeze, just because he
okay,
doesn't know what you're gonna do. And again, I expect this range to be relatively weak as played, because if he's playing it like that, he's underplaying it and he's under realizing like he should be making more money with his hand by playing it a different way, we'll say. You go for the raise, and I think this is a little bit too thin. With this specific
yeah.
hand, I think I would just call and freeze in position.
Maybe the
Go ahead.
consideration also is that there's a third player in the hand, and I don't want to give him a free card, but he's gonna call anyway. So
Yeah, the other thing here too is like I would much rather do it with a hand with like 8-5 And the reason is because like then I can comfortably break the 8 and draw at the 5. Where here is
Mhm.
if like he calls and I want to break the 7, I'm drawing to like a 6, but it's not a great 6. Like if I had
Mhm.
8-5, I still have a wheel draw in that specific spot.
Yeah.
But I think this one is just a good one to freeze in position. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, I hear what you're saying, like charging this player here because most likely he's drawing. But
Yeah.
we're not really quite sure of like this range over here because theoretically, like this just could be a really good 7. This theoretically could be a 6, but it's probably not. I think people realize now at this point of
No.
the game that 6s are actually quite good hands. He pads,
Yeah.
he draws 1, and you pad, he checks. I would probably check this one back. I think the check's good. And
Okay.
he has the hand that we were actually want to have in the situation.
Yeah.
And then yeah, yep, I'm naked was drawing at the 6-5, but it's kind of like one of these spots where if you raise and you don't have the best hand, you're like really punished. And you do want to have some flats in your, I would say, your range where, you know, like you're just kind of at like the bottom of your padding range, whatever you want to call it. I think like padding just in this position is totally fine as opposed to raising every single time. All right, next hand here, 2-3-7. I think you fold. No, you raise. I think 2-3-7 king under the hijack here's a little bit loose. Let's go over here stud flop draw real quick, and we'll go draw games pro and ace to 5 triple, and we can look at this theoretically. So 2-3-7 king from this spot I think is just too loose. Yeah, this is a 37 percentile hand from
Oh
the
yeah.
from well, it depends on the position and like what your opponent is, but
Mhm.
basically like looking at the overall percentile of your hand kind of gives you a clue. Obviously, if
Yeah.
we do something like this, like 2-3-7-2-3 or something like that, obviously now it jumps up and we can probably play
Yeah.
it from that spot. But 37 from the hijack's a little bit too loose, so I would just go ahead and fold that one.
Okay.
All right, so fold. Small blind raises doesn't really matter at this point. He's relatively short. We're gonna
Yeah.
call. It's gonna go 2. Yeah, you make your hand, pat your hand, get it in, whatever. Yeah, okay, great. You played it fantastic. All right. You
Yeah. It
skip
was a
this.
little loose. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit loose, but again, like it's something to take away. And one of the things that I've been stressing with people ever since they released the pro version in this starting hand like kind of range is like the difference between like the pairs and the blockers versus not. So even if
Mhm.
we add something here like deuce 3-7-9, right? Something like that. You can see like it still falls in the middle, but still like we're jumping up almost 10%. We're not
Mhm.
technically still playing this from the hijack. We're probably playing this from the cutoff. But again, if you have something similar, we're not raising this one, I believe, from the cutoff. They think it's just too loose, blockers are bad,
Mhm.
etc. But the pair blocker aspect of it, the trips aspect of it, just changes the equity in the hand so much pre-draw.
Yep.
Okay. All right, 2-3-6 here. This is one we're going to defend from the big one if we can. We're calling. This is good. Draws 1. Yeah, we catch 2-9s. Something to just like throw in the back of our head, but not super important. Draws 1.
Mhm.
Catch a 9 here. Again, we check. He bets. This is where I would call in draw 1 at the 9 now. This is a little bit different than like as opposed to him
Okay.
calling in position and drawing at the jack. Drawing at the 9 is fine. Similar like in here, if you induce to 7, if you caught a 10, I believe induce to 7 here, you're supposed to check call and draw at the 10, drawing 1. But in ace to 5 here, I believe you're supposed to check call and draw not the 9. You do. He pats. And you make the 9 on the river here. I would not lead this, even though you've seen 2 9s. So in this
This is
spot
just to
here, like,
7, so I make an ace. Yeah.
oh my goodness, I am playing the wrong game. Thank you for catching me here.
Yeah.
So yeah, you played great. So far he played this one great. So yeah, draw 1, catch a 9, blah blah blah. He's still drawing. You check call, draw the 9, great. And on the river you
Yeah.
catch this, and this is one I think we're just gonna throw our hand away. Like it is kind of tempting in some ways because we haven't seen any 7s or 8s, and again, like that's one of those hands where you kind of like go, it's like, oh, if you paired the 7s or 8s, is he gonna turn say no bluff? But usually he should only be doing that if he's got a straight draw on there. So I'm check folding the ace on the river here. So I think this is fine. This is good.
Yeah.
But thank you for correcting me. There's just so many draw games in here.
Yeah.
All right, 2-3-4-5 monster starting hand here. You open, he calls. 1-2, make the 10. You bet, he calls. Yeah, we're still breaking. Catch the 6. Kind of unfortunate. We bet, we call. We're drawing again. He pats. We're kind of set. Okay, now this is interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's played here. I want to see this. Did he go 2 to pat? He does go 2 to pat. Okay, so you bet and he calls, and you've seen a 6, a 10.
Jack.
You've seen 2 10s. And
Yeah.
okay, well, you make a jack on the river. Okay, so this is a little bit more important, right? So one thing I think in general is, especially in like these tournaments, is most players tend to what's the word? They still tend to raise in position when they're going to pat as opposed to freezing. And when he's frozen here, so we've seen 2 10s, catches a 9, 10, we catch the 6. So we've seen 2 10s and a 6, and now we catch the jack on the river. So if you think about like what his hands want to freeze in this position, like 10s are a pretty good candidate to do it with, right?
Hmm.
And the 6 is obviously a blocker that like he needs, etc. Or theoretically, like it's another good card for you. But when you get to this river here and you think about like what he's padding here, this is an interesting bet because realistically, like against players who are kind of freezing correctly, I think we want to go ahead and check and then probably check all this
Yes.
river because like a lot of their bluffs, what their two to pat bluffs might even look like are like two pair in the situation where they just
Hmm.
like freeze behind you. Players underutilize this; they always raise and then they turn their hand into a bluff still. But if
Yeah.
they're really good players, what they'll do here is they'll like freeze in position and then, or if they make trips, they'll like freeze in position a lot of times and then turn their hand into a bluff. So in this spot here, I think the other thing too is we saw that previous hand where he had the ace 6 7 jack queen, a hand that he shouldn't be getting to showdown. So if
Yeah.
we apply the same dynamics here, he probably has like a few more hands that he's padding here than most likely most players should. I
Yeah.
actually like this bet for the blockers that we've seen, the exploit that we've seen in this situation. I think this bet against his range is good. The other thing too is like this is a spot where he's never going to raise you, right? Like if he didn't raise you on the previous street, he's missing value. So theoretically here, what's going to happen most likely is like we check and he's just going to check it back more often than not. And if we have the best hand, we're going to win. But
Yeah.
if we bet here, he's almost never raising us. So we're basically kind of deciding is like, is our hand worth one bet? Now I think in all the distributions of jacks, this is a little bit close, but we can remove a lot of the other hands that beat you just from the blockers that we have. So I actually think this bet is actually good on the river here.
I mean, this is the best jack, so
It is the best jack. Yeah, and he's going to pat like all jacks behind here in this spot. So
yeah.
he pats the jack 8 7, which again I think is totally fine. I think he might have patted some queens behind you as well here. So I think this bet is even better thinking about it. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think this bet here is I think this bet's good, and I'll bet that a lot of players would not have found. Now, had I not seen the blockers and maybe playing in like $100 tournament, I probably would have checked this river. But again, kind of given the dynamics here, I think this is a really good bet. I think this is a really a good find on your part.
Thanks.
All right.
Yeah, I was pretty confident he had a jack in this pot and had the best jack. It was a almost a slam dunk bend for me, considering the read I had on what he did in that hand.
Yeah, and I think I like your bet better too because like I think he could probably even pat some queens behind or just pat some kings behind and try to get his just
Yeah.
try to like gain whatever equity he has in this situation against the D1. All right, Badacey here. You open. This is a little bit too weak. I am not opening.
Yeah.
Drawing 3 from this position.
Yeah.
Oh, fold. So we're heads up. You do reduce to the 1 card wheel draw. Now the only question here is I think your player here is a little bit sticky. We've kind of seen that. So
Hmm.
like I think if he
Yeah.
makes any Badugi in this situation, then you're just going to be getting free rolled, and you have no way to realistically improve your hand. So I would probably check and throw the 4 5 of diamonds away here. You check. This is good. I
Yeah.
don't hate this play as long as you bet the next street. Because
Okay.
basically, like when you take 3 and 2, you can have some you definitely have a fair bit of Badugis in your range. You were going for a check raise. So when you draw
Oh
one,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, when you draw, and now you have 3 diamonds in your hand too. And I think you threw away. No, you didn't throw away. No, I don't think you threw away another one. But if that's the case now with these 3 low diamonds, like it reduces the combos of him making a Badugi to call you down. So
Yeah.
I think you have to kind of like turn your hand into a semi bluff. This is a really good hand to turn into a semi bluff, a wheel with a 2 card.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you bet, and he calls, and you pat, and he draws 1, you bet, and he calls. But like now he calls the river here as played with a 3 card 9 and a 9 7 low. And I mean, this is bad. This is really, really, really bad. He should not have called you
Yeah.
on the previous street, and he should not get this hand to showdown because like there is just, I mean, like you're crushing his range from opening under the gun,
Yeah.
drawing 3 again. Like his 2 cards going to crush you. Like he's hoping you have like this type of hand, which is just such a small portion of your range. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you're saying even if I hadn't improved to that wheel, I should have bet that street.
I would have as more of a semi bluff.
Yeah.
I am not a huge fan of finding finding a semi bluff in this game. Oh, do we have a different
Yeah.
diamond? We had a 10 of diamonds as well too, so like it reduces some of the combos there. But I'm not a huge fan of turning my hand into a semi bluff in this game. Usually you find the semi bluffs with respect to the hands that like a wheel here with a 2 card. You have zero equity on the Badugi side,
Hmm.
but you get to bet like very hard and like bluff your hand effectively for half the pot
Yeah.
because you're so strong on one side.
Hmm.
But the way this one's played out, you now have a range advantage where you have a ton of Badugis in your range. And
Yeah.
because of
That's
that, like you can go ahead and like semi bluff your hand, I think. You kind of like find one of these weird spots where like now it looks like you might have been going for the check raise. And if that's the case here, then you should be betting and getting his hand to fold like ace deuce four, ace deuce four seven with a 2 card. That hand should be like just clearly folded at that point. So, all right, ace four in the big blind here. Raise under the gun, call. Yeah, I'm calling here with ace four, 3-2. You make 7-7. I would go for the check raise here. I think like
Yeah.
again, like against the 2 under the gun in Badeucey and Badacey too. Again, I've said this in the past where, you don't have to improve for your players to bet because
Mhm.
given the fact that the Badeucey side, or sorry, the Badugi side of the hand, you're pushing so much equity if you're still got the best 3 card that you should be doing some betting in
Yeah.
position. But in this spot, I think it's just clear you want to go for a check raise with 7-7. You bet he raises, I would go for a 3 bet. I think this is fine. Kind of given what we've seen, like 7-7 is just a really strong hand. You just hope you don't get raised on the next street because when he draws 1 here, he should have some Badugis. You bet he calls. Now we're feeling pretty good about our hand. On the river, we bet, and he calls. And we get scooped.
Yeah.
Scooped. Oh yeah, he just pipped us both ways. So yeah, I think you play your hand fine in this spot, but he just kind of pips you on the river there.
Yeah.
So.
Just need to check raise the after the first draw.
Yep. All right, here we got 3-7 in the cutoff, and even with these blockers, these extra 2 clubs, this is again too loose. You can probably open any ace deuce, ace 3 from the cutoff here, but I think like this is clearly just too loose with 3-7.
Okay.
So call button. You guys are just gonna play every hand against each other.
Yeah.
Now this is a fun one here. I actually think to start turning your hand into a bluff,
Mhm.
because like you have the worst 2 card you've seen, 2 clubs and 2 diamonds, and an extra pair now. So like I would totally just I would totally like check raise and pat your hand here. He checks, you bet, you call, you draw 2. I think like just turning your hand into bluff would have been fun there.
Yeah.
Draw 2, he draws 1. Same kind of concept here. It's interesting now. You check, he bets. You've seen a lot of this is another fun spot to even like theoretically here go for a check raise and turn your hand into a bluff and then draw 1 even. You don't even have to pat your hand here. You could just like turn your hand into a bluff and draw 1 because as many cards as you've seen, you're going to throw away 2 3s, a bunch of low diamonds, a bunch of low clubs. And, you know, if he's got like a 3 card 7 or a 3 card 8 going into this river, which most likely he has kind of like the way this hand's played out, he really can't call you on the river unless he makes a Badugi. But you want to go for a check raise with value here with like ace 2 3 against his range.
Yeah.
So like this one I think is a fun one because then you can reduce on this river too, right? Like you don't want to turn every single, you know, 3 card 10, 3 card 9 into a bluff, but you do want to pick the ones where you can actually reduce into a bluff in this situation. So I do think going for a check raise here and like drawing 1 is an option. You could check call and draw 1. I don't like it as much just based off the blocker factor. Or you could like even theoretically like check raise pat your hand. But I think players get a little bit more sticky in that situation. I think players get a little less sticky if you check raise draw 1. So I think I would turn my hand into a bluff and you do fold. It's not like, again, I think I'm still finding a way to play that one there just based off the blockers that you've seen, but I get the fold. All right, A3-4 here under the gun with the blocker. I think it's fine. Raise. You guys are just going to play every hand, like I say. 1-1. You make 8-4. You bet. He calls. You bet he calls. I bet he folds. All right, yeah, nothing really to say there. Just A3-4 with the extra blocker there under the gun. We can just do fun one here and see the Badugi one in the situation. But 3-4-8-8. And we can see here with the blocker, like it's pretty clear open in my mind having a 17 percentile hand, so the D1 there. So if we had like 3-4-8 king, 3-4-8 king, no Badugi. So if we had like the 3-4-8 king, no Badugi. It's like yes, it's the same thing. Interesting. The pair value is like almost the same. So it still would like considering opening a 3-4-8 in this position, it looks like it's probably okay. So I think like that one's played fine.
Okay.
All right. Deuce, 5, 10. He opens call. I would take 2. This is good. Draw 1. 2, 5, 7. Deuce. Check call. Yeah, I don't think there's really anything else to say. 1-1. You still have a 3 card 7 here. Check.
Yeah.
Make the 6.
Are you thinking about a check raise here?
Yeah, I'm thinking about a check raise here. The thing is like the way he's played his hand, I think a lot of his range here on this river here, it still wants to go check, and sometimes he wins and sometimes he doesn't.
Yeah.
Because like he wants to turn his 3 card 8s probably into bluffs, but I don't know if players are doing that. So I think theoretically here, you probably just want to go for a bet and he might just get sticky and call you with a 3 card. So you go for the bet and you do get called, and he does have a 3 card 5. So the other thing too, again, in the smaller limit tournaments, I think players are just less, because my guess is he had a 3 card 8 and he reduced to a 3 card 5, just kind of given the way this hand played out. But I think players at the lower limits, depending on who you're playing against, you're still going to see players checking back, like 3-card 5s in position there. And if that's the case, then you want to just be going for the lead. But if your opponent wants to go for a thin value bet there with like ace deuce 5 or ace 3-5, then you should be going for the check raise, I think. But again, it's hard for him to have a 3-card 5 the way this hand's played out. So I think like leading, I think just betting your hand in lower limits is totally fine. All right, we're dealt the 3-card 5. This is a nice looking hand here in the small blind. We raise, we get called. 1-2, we bet, we get called. Just keep betting until like something else changes, really. You've seen a 6, a 4, and a 9. So we're going to bet again here. We get called. And then on this river here, I do think we want to check this one. I think we want to just check this 3-card 5 here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we check and we check. And we do bid 3-card 8. I think this is good. I think you are supposed to check call here, though, from a GTO perspective. But I think checking the little rough 3-card 5 here in the spot, I think is good.
Yeah. So you don't think that's a 3-card hand that's good enough to value bet on the end?
I mean, it depends on how sticky your opponents really are, and it's. I mean, that's it's a cop out. It's an answer that I don't love to give, but in reality, if you start like solving these spots and then changing some of the frequencies of your players of like how often they're calling and not, then it does depend. I mean, like any three, I don't think you're supposed to bet every single 3-card 5. But if your opponent starts calling with every 3-card 7 or every 3-card 6, then yeah, you probably should be actually.
Yeah.
But I don't think like your opponent here is going to call you with 3-card 8. I don't think your opponents here are going to call you necessarily with 3-card 7. And if they do, I mean, he's called you down with a lot of pretty bad hands. So like theoretically, I mean, yeah, if you want to
particular player,
then yeah, you could probably go for a thin bet with a 3-card 5. So I mean, I think you make a pretty good point there. All right, Badacey now 5-4-3-2-1 with 4-3-2 ace best Badugi. You open here. I don't tend to break wheel draws. I tend to keep the wheel draws. So if I have like a 3-card 4 with a wheel draw here,
okay,
I'm keeping it. You can do whatever here against this player because he's relatively short. Like you're just gonna get it in on a later street, so you can 4-bet. You can just draw 2. Oh, you drew
the 5.
Yeah, I would still keep the 5 here. I think having a 3-card 4 with the wheel draws is plenty enough. You do make a 7 here, and now it's just gonna go all in one way or the other, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, okay.
You bet he calls. And on the previous draw, it went 1-2, so you should be patting the sand. You pat, he pats. Yeah, he's all in. And you were going to chop it. He's got a better low.
Yeah.
But yeah, that looks good. All right, Badugi here, you're Delta 10. Raise, fold, 3-bet. Yeah, you just 4-bet this one and pat this one. You shouldn't have all Badugis here. Like you shouldn't have your worst kings. You probably shouldn't have your worst queens here. It is interesting because you're kind of in the middle of the tournament. You have like a decent stack, so you could open up a little bit more, but I still would just fold like the worst kings and worst queens. You pat, he draws 1, bet, call, pat, you draw, bet, call. And then on this river here, your pat, he draws 1. Like I think you should put him in and like force him. He might call you, like the pot's so big, he might just decide to like pay you off with a good 3-card. So I do think in a vacuum, I'm not sure if you should bet a 10 here every single time. But I do think, given the dynamics of him, like putting him all in and like getting sticky, wanting to win a big pot, I do think you should.
I think he could call a jack, maybe. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, he would call a jack.
Yeah, on the end,
He
jack
should.
Badugi.
He probably should. I mean, he should. He should also. I mean, like I think if he just makes a Badugi, he's supposed to call. Like you do have some bluffs. Like you should have some bluffs here, but they're just few and far between. But he probably, like, given the pot size and his, again, like, he's effectively out of this tournament anyways with 1.4 big blinds. Like, don't ever give up kind of thing. I get it. But with 1.4 big blinds in these games, like, you're just kind of out. And unless you're in the rebuy period, like, if your opponent does ever have, like, a small bluff frequency and you can, pick up, I don't know, 17 big blinds or get yourself back to 20 pretty quick, it's probably worth the call. But, yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying here. All right, 10-3-5 big blind. He's all in. I don't think this one matters here. I don't know why this one matters. I don't even know why I put this one in here. I must have just forgotten.
Maybe the draw decisions.
No, not. I mean, it's kind of just like face up. I would draw the 3-5 here. I would draw the 10.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You reduce the 3-card, and he's all in, so there's like nothing he can really do here. Yeah. Just 1-1. Like, I'm pretty surprised to see this. Maybe just the fact that like, if he had the 3-card 10, like. I still think I probably would have waited for the next hand. Because you could open here, and I guess you could theoretically open here, but like if I'm going to play this hand, I probably want it from the button. But you just don't have fold equity. That's the problem with this hand. It's hard to reduce. So I probably would have waited for the next one, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Again, like he's got like basically one in less than half of the big blind, so it's not the biggest deal in the world.
Yeah, so he's got one more hand before being in the big blind. So you're
I think I
saying
would have waited.
wait
Yeah,
one more.
I think I would have waited. Like you can just draw 4 from the big blind. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
you don't have
exactly.
to. I would never want a hand that's not going to reduce very well in that game. From there, because like if you keep like 10-9 deuce, 10-8 deuce, even if you reduce to a 3-card 8,
Yep.
and again, it's hard. You just have to make it Badugi in that situation. When obviously, if you can reduce to the best hand, I mean, you just have a ton of equity with it. So, all right, this is a fun one, and I actually ran this one. I'm not going to show this here, but if your opponent here is like raising a decent bit, like this is supposed to be a raise in Pat here with the 10-10. It's something that I would
Okay.
not have found. I would have thought like this is a spot where I 3-bet and break the 5 and break the 10, but it actually likes keeping the 10-10 here with this draw. So
Okay.
I like I said, I was pretty surprised about that, but it does like having this 10. If he 4-bet, I probably take 2.
Yeah.
But since he did in this situation, I mean, like if your opponent here can take 3, this is a really good bat with 10-10. So
Yep.
you just bet. What do you take? Draws 2. Yeah, bet. He calls. And then on this river here, I still think we should bet 10-10.
Okay.
When you don't have the deuce in your hand, it makes it more likely he has like a 3-card in some sort of draw where he's just like he wants to pay you off light. And like if he's got a better hand on
Okay.
this river that scoops you anyways, he's
Mm-hmm.
he's gonna bet in position, right? Where you want the ability to like gain the extra bet if you have the best hand. Whereas if you check in this situation, um, if you check in the situation, he's gonna probably value bet all better hands anyways. So
Yeah.
I want to go for the value bet here myself. And if he decides to like, I mean, if you raise it is what it is. You just call because like you still have equity on both sides. He could have made it a
Yeah.
big good Badugi with a pair, or he could have just made a good low with a 3-card, and those just outweigh the situation of folding like a 2-way hand. So you do check, he checks back, and he did have an 8 Badugi, but he never put the raise in, which is crazy in Badeucey with the 2-3-4-8, unless he had the ace. But I don't think so. I mean, like you should be raising the 2-3-4-8. It's pushing so much equity against a small blind range.
Okay.
All right, ace to 5 triple here. We have ace 5 in the cutoff. This is again too loose. I
Okay.
would not open a 3-card from here unless I had maybe an extra blocker. But you got to do if you're going to do it here, you got to do it with ace deuce because like ace 5 and ace deuce are two completely different hands. You're basically
Okay.
like you can make a lot of different hands with ace deuce. With
Yes.
ace 5, you can still make a wheel, but like the next best hand that you can make is
Yeah.
6-5-3-2-1, and then after that it's like what 6-5-4-2-1, where you can make basically every good 6 and a lot of different ones in between. So I think having the ace deuce versus the ace 5 makes it slightly more, but it folds through, so you get that one through.
Okay.
All right, 3-4-6 here and ace to 5. This is a good 3-bet. I like this. Goes 2-2. We make a 6-high straight. I like the lead here. You can go for some check raises here, but I don't mind just leading here and padding. Draws 1, bet, fold, you just win. Okay, so he must have had a rough draw. This seems fun. Ace 3, 6, 7, 8 here on the button. He raises. I would 3-bet here and break the 8. That's my plan. You do raise. And if it goes off 3-way, I'm probably breaking the 7 and drawing at the ace 3, 6.
Yeah.
But your head's up, so I like breaking the 8. You do. Goes 2-1. He's going to check. You're going to bet. Call. Pair the 6 in a 1-1 spot. Now, sometimes here in this position, I do bet when I pair, but I think this is one where I want to just check this back.
Yeah.
With your check, he pets. Draws 1 on the river. We pair aces, which is very annoying. But yeah, probably one we're not going to bluff here. So he bets, and I would just fold. I just think that most players in these tournaments are just underfinding the bluffs in these games. All right, ace 5 in the big blind. Now this is a little bit different here. I would call and draw 3 at the ace 5. It's fine. Probably any 2 wheel cards, and ace 5 is probably fine to defend. It goes 3-3, and you make a ace deuce 5-7. So here I would go ahead and lead. He raises you, and I'm just going to call. Now, again, like this is something that you do see still in these limits where the player, if he makes a pretty big draw, is just going to raise in position. And if they do that, like you just kind of have to be cautious going forward because they're basically saying I have a really strong draw if they're not pat. So something to take to mind. He does go pat here. But I'm not breaking 7-5 because like going 3 to pat, like 7-5 still has plenty of equity against the 3 to pat range.
Yeah.
And then you make 7-6 on this river against the 3 to pat. The only real question here is I do think your hand has enough value to bet, especially if your opponent is like patting all 8s and maybe even some 9s here.
Yeah. I agree.
So I think like maybe making a thin value bet on this river is totally fine. Because you should be you're like representing a strong range. And if you get raised on this river, like obviously it's really polar, right? Like he's just bluffing you, or he went 3 to pat in a situation where like it's just really hard to go 3 to pat. But I think like leading a 7-6 on this river is probably okay. You check, he bets and calls. That's also a fine option. He just went 3 to wheel, so it does happen.
Yeah.
It does happen.
Mhm.
All right. So full steer on the button here with 7-6 and deuce to 7. This is, excuse me, this is just way too loose.
Yeah, I agree.
7-6 is just like it's you just if you're gonna open the button and draw 3, you definitely want like a deuce in your hand and you want like an extra wheel card with it. Um, 7-6 is 7-6 puts you in an awkward spot. You get it through though, so that's obviously a bonus. Now there are situations. I will say this: there are ICM situations later in the tournament, depending on if you're big stack or like
Yeah.
raising this hand is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with it, depending, and that's
Mhm.
how like drastic the game changes between like if you're playing for chips or if you're like worrying about ICM and if you're the chip leader or not. But this spot, this is just a clear fold. 3-8-6 here. Button raises. I would 3-bet. This is good. You have 2 10s. Keep notice. This is still deuce to 7.
Yeah.
2-2. We make 2 pair. I'm gonna go ahead and check and call and just make a note. I've seen 2 10s, a 3, and a 6.
Yeah.
Now it goes 1. Yeah, ace king. We're gonna check. We're supposed to check call again here and draw 2. You do the right
Yeah.
thing. You pair eights against pad hand, and yeah, he checks. We've seen 3
We've
eights.
seen a lot of stuff, but
Yeah,
it's
we can't
sevens.
call here. And the problem here is like if we check raise again, like if we made 2 pair again, then we could probably go for a check raise again.
Mhm.
But this seems like a complete over. If we check raise here, it's like a pretty high over check raise in my mind. So
Yeah.
I would just fold. You
Yeah.
do like you want to bluff catch him here at some frequency, but obviously with the eights you can't do it.
No.
All right, deuce 2 7 7. We're playing Badacey this one. So here, so he
Mhm.
raises. We call. I think this is fine for what it's worth. Given blockers, he draws 2.
Yeah.
You make a 6 low and a 7 doogie. So bet raise. This is good. Calls, draws 1. Check, bet, call. This is good. Check, bet, call. And I think he also probably plays his hand fine here. Like getting to the river with the Badugi is probably okay. If he did not have the Badugi going into the river, if he had ace, deuce, 7, 8 with a 3 card, that's a pretty bad call. The problem here is again, like even if he has the Badugi in this situation, it's like one of these reverse implied. So if he does have the Badugi
Mhm.
here, my guess is he had like the 9, 8, deuce, ace. That's a tricky spot to be in. Honestly, I think if I had the Badugi on the first draw and drew 1, I I might I might do something crazy and draw 3 again. Maybe keep the 8 3 card 8 because again, like your opponent here going 3 to pat, he should have like 9 9s and stuff like that. So probably keeping the 8 in that situation makes a little bit more sense. But um I don't think I would keep a 9 8 Badugi. I think it's getting free rolled one way or the other. All right, let's do a couple more hands here and then we'll call
Yep.
part 1. All right, Badacey here. Button raises. Yeah, I would still call here with 2 5. This seems good. Okay, it goes 3 3 and it's kind of the same dynamic here where like I'm probably checking and drawing 3 again at the
It's fine. Yeah.
yeah, the deuce, the ace 5, but if he checks again, if he checks, I might do my my play from
Yeah.
last hand where I draw 1 and bet the next street hoping that he finds a
Okay.
fold. So you check, he bets, you call, you take 1. The problem here again is
No.
it's
This is
hard in
not
this
good.
situation to get him to fold on a later street. What did he take? He took 1. I actually think what I'm doing here is I'm actually folding your hand because
Yeah.
it's just really, it's like you have to catch the 3 of diamonds, you have to catch like the 6 of diamonds to have any equity. Even if you do catch the 6 of diamonds, you have an ace, you have a 6 5 ace 3 card, and it's just not that great. It's one of these spots where like the reverse implied odds going forward is just not that good. So you do take 1 again,
Yeah.
you make a 9, you check, he bets, and he drew on this last draw. You have a very clear check call here with the 9, and you fold. So
Okay.
this is just an overfold in my mind. Because again, he's just incentivized to bet any Badugi as played. But
Yeah.
especially when you make like a 9, in this spot, if you have a 9 in that situation against his like a pad or not a pad hand, but like if you have a 9 in that spot against like him drawing 1, basically you're gonna have something like 67% equity on the ace to 5 side, not to mention he's still incentivized to bet most Badugis. So you definitely want to check all that river if you get there with a 9.
Okay. Well, I'm quite new still to Badeucey, Badacey, and a little Badugi, but in that last hand, I do feel like my inexperience showed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's why we're here. We're all trying to learn it. So
Yeah.
all right. 10 3 6 here. Let's get through, I think, the Badugi hands and we'll call it.
Yeah.
You open here with a 3 6 10, you get 3 bet. So be it. You draw 2. This is fine. He pats. And I would just check fold here. I think this is good. The reason being is because like
Yeah.
you have one of your worst 2 cards. You are just going to improve to the next street, and realistically, like you're almost like not getting the right price anyways here.
Yeah.
So like yeah, I actually think folding here against the pat range is good.
Okay.
All right. Here on the button here with ace deuce. Again, this is just a little bit too loose. Again, some ICM situations where you could consider
Oh,
this, but we're not
yeah.
really. I think you might have thought you had a 3 card, but you just don't here with the ace. You just
No.
can't just draw 3 here in position. But I think it gets through, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, it gets through.
Yeah.
All right, ace deuce 3 here in the big. Button raises, you call, you draw 2 at the ace deuce. This is good. You reduce the ace deuce 6, and he takes 1. You check, he bets. You can do some, depending on how wide your opponent here is opening.
Mhm.
I think that you could start check raising here, or you could just like lead the next street if you if he takes 1 again. You can do some like funky things here when you improve. I do think your 3 card 6-0 is probably ahead of his range in this situation. So I don't know if you have to check raise. You can just go 1-1. You could lead the next street. I don't mind the check call. It does go 1-1. King. I probably would lead here now with the ace deuce 6, kind of just the way this is played out. Goes check check. So he probably has a rough 3 card. You catch the queen. Now, theoretically, here the only question is do you want to bet your ace deuce 6 for value, or are you going to get called by a worse 3 card 6, 7, or 8? I don't know the answer to that question, but my guess is it's probably not in these tournaments. So I probably would just go ahead and check. You check, and he checks back. And he was drawing at a 3 card jack. So yeah, we definitely want to go for value there if your opponent's there drawing in the 3 card jack.
Mhm.
So.
Yep.
And if he's drawing a 3 card jack, we definitely want to check raise the first draw. That's just a
Yeah.
something to keep in mind. All right, deuce 3 jack here. You fold. I would just fold here again. I'm like, you have to raise and take
Yeah.
3. I just wouldn't do this. And
Yeah.
it gets through again. So this is one thing, like the exploitation of like raising some of these hands, and players look like they're over folding. All right, let's do, this is the last one here, it looks like. Okay, so we got
Yeah.
ace deuce on the button. You're gonna open. This is good. And it just goes through. I don't know why I put that one in there again, but I don't know. All right, you did
Yeah,
it.
this one's pretty nice, isn't it?
Yeah, that was pretty nice.
Yeah.
All right, let's do one more since we're here. Let's do Badeucey.
Yeah.
All right, 2, 5, 7, 8. Pretty easy hand here. You have the 8 Badugi. You're gonna open.
Yeah.
This is good. You should just draw 1 and just keep betting down until you hit. Yeah, 7 Badugi, 8 low.
100 and 8 low.
You bet.
Yeah.
Yep. Call. I think the only thing here is like, would you do anything different if
If you raised.
yeah, if you raised? It just, it's really, it's tough in these lower limit ones because I think people start with the baseline of basically saying like, what's the best hand, and the more they raise, they're basically like their range, or not their range, but their hand value is closer to the best hand, because a lot of times players playing in these tournaments don't necessarily know like what type of value they have. So I think probably with your hand, it's just a check call showdown in some of these tournaments, but in some of the other tournaments, I do think like even a higher limit tournament, this might be a 3 bet. It's close, but actually let's do real quick. Since we're here, we got one more Badeucey hand. We'll call it 2-4.
Yeah.
This is an easy one. This is just a raise and pat type one. You raise,
Yeah.
he takes 2, pat, check, bet, raise, call. Now he's pat. Now your hand 100% gets the showdown value here. It just gets the showdown. You do not put
Yeah.
another raise in with this hand. I see a lot of people
No.
like, I have a 7, I have to put a raise in just because it's their deuce to 7 mentality. You are getting totally free rolled in this situation.
Yeah.
So
I
like
agree.
you just get it to showdown. You call, he pats again, you pat, he bets, you call. And yeah, I mean, like he had a relative monster, but
Yeah.
he just looks like he found that magical heart. But yeah, like it's definitely a mistake that I still see people make, is they find this raise in this situation again with a 7 and a 2 card, and they're just getting totally free rolled, and then they get to the river and someone has like the number 3 low with like a 2, 5, 7, and they get scooped. So yeah, like when you're getting free rolled in these positions against a player who's shown aggression against you, you just need to get your hand to showdown. But just call down, not raise. Excuse me. All right, Julian. That was part 1. How'd we do?
I think we did great. That was very interesting. Definitely some spots where I feel like I learned some stuff. And I'm excited for the next one because I feel like there were a lot of hands that I won here, but definitely did not win all the way down to the rest of the tournament. So there will be some interesting hands that I lost that I think are important to review.
Yeah, I think this first part is definitely something that we can decide was something more along the lines of looking at some of the mistakes that you made,
Yeah.
but at the same time too, this was more of like the chip EV. We're playing for chips in the situation as opposed to thinking about the tournament aspect.
Yeah.
The next video for sure, as we get closer to the money, there's a lot of interesting spots that we kind of can talk about with respect to the ICM implications. So yeah, looking forward to doing that, and we'll get this first part out there, and then we'll record the second one and get that out there into the world as well. Anything else you want to add, Julian?
No, I'm just very happy that you invited me to do the review together, and I'm excited for the part 2, and I hope we'll see you there.
All right. Always, guys, if you're watching, you can do what Julian did. You can record 1 hour on Phenom, send it in for a free review. You can always use code LMG to register for a Phenom account. You get 2 free hours and a 200% deposit bonus. And again, you can always go to MixedGamesLab. You can go to lab.deathdonkey.com, Omaha Mate, and Studflop Draw. Use code LMG for all the tools up here that you see that we use pretty frequently, and you'll get a discount on those. Until then, guys, good luck at the tables. Play well. We will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.